Hi, and welcome to Math 8. We're looking today at Unit 1, Lesson 3, talking about grid moves today. And we're going to be doing some transformations of figures on different types of grids. And so today in the class, one of the things you looked at was a grid that looked like this. And we call this an isometric grid. And it's called that isometric because it's not the regular, just square block kind of shape grid pattern, is it? Everything was a little bit different. And there are some things you probably observed today as you went about this, looked at this in class today. You might have observed that you have parallel lines that run like this way. You have a set of parallel lines that run vertically, and you also have parallel lines that run this direction here. And so an isometric grid is made up of three sets of parallel lines, and those parallel lines, when they intersect, they end up forming an equilateral triangle when they all intersect, like so. So we have all these equilateral triangles all over the place. But because they're equilateral triangles, that means that every angle is actually going to be 60 degrees. So when you shift the line from one space to another, we're rotating it 60 degrees. So for example, if I look at something like this measurement is here to here is 60 degrees. So if I was to move this line to that position, that'd be a 60-degree turn there. There aren't any 90-degree angles, and that's just what we have. We have this instead of squares. Okay, so it's an interesting type of way of graphing things. It lets you move shapes in 60 degrees and in 120s and things like that. So then you went on to some transformation practice, and I'm not sure how you maybe did it in your class. There's different ways to approach this here. You were given some shapes and asked to do some various exercises with them. You were asked to translate them so they move, and you could have done this with you could have done with a piece of paper here. So we could have used some patty paper first for number one, and if we had used the patty paper, what we might have done is traced the first shape A, C, B, like so. And if we trace that shape, and it says, like for number one, on the first example, it asks you to translate triangle ABC that A goes to A prime. Well, this is my A point right here, and I want that A point to now be over here. So in doing so, what I would do is I would redraw that shape over in that position. So I might flip up my patty paper just a little bit to find out where those points are going to be. And I put a little point right here, where that dot's going to be, and I see I'm going to have a point right here for where that dot's going to be. Double check. Yep, got that right. And now I can connect the dots, and I draw this here, here, and here to make that translation. So that's just using the patty paper. I could do the same for figure 2, where it says translate ABC so that C goes to C prime. And that prime number, that little hashtag there, that C prime, that means it's like C, but it's like this next C, okay? So if I'm going to translate this point, C, over to there, then I'm going to slide the whole thing to that point, okay? Now again, in doing so, I notice that I move all my other points. So my A prime ends up being here. Here's A prime. And B prime ends up being right here. Oops, yeah, that's right. So now I connect the dots again, and I can use this so it's a little different. Oops, sorry about that. And I have my next shape, and I've translated it that direction. For figure 3, it says to rotate through triangle ABC 90 degrees counterclockwise using O as my center. Now, what's nice about this one, and I see here I should have made my grid paper a little bit different. Let me make a new chart real quick, my new triangle, sorry. I'm going to go zoom and zoom and zoom. And I'm doing that because I want to have O, a place where I can put my pencil at, okay? So if I'm going to rotate counterclockwise 90 degrees, what that means I need to think about, I need this line right here. We're going to go counterclockwise, so we're going this direction. So I'll use this line, and I want it to go 90 degrees, which means I want it to turn a whole turn. Okay, so it means I'm going to take it and I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees. So if I'm here, if I think about a 90-degree measurement, 90 degrees is like a square, right? So that's a square. So let's think of it this way. I need to get this line all the way over to here to make that 90 degrees. So if I drew a diagonal line here, I know I'm aiming for something along over here, except I'm rotating it around that spot. So let's see, if I go over here and wait till it gets to be that same length there, and we're going to go 90 degrees, it should be somewhere about there. Let's see, looking good, pretty good there. We have a nice little rotation of 90 degrees, something like that, okay? So it's a little tricky to do in some ways, so you might look at it and say, well, 90 degrees. Again, what we're doing is we're saying 90 degrees from here is this point here. Here's 90 degrees at 0. So there's my 90 from the 0, or from the O. Right, that's my 90 degrees from where this is currently. And so we're going to rotate that around to get to that point. Alright, so we're going to go all the way until we get to the place where, sorry, that line, our baseline, ends up being here. So for points, I would draw a point right here, a point right here, and then coming down 1, 2, right here. And then I would draw in my triangle like so. This, this, and this. And so that 90 really is based upon, or how I turn that, is I'm waiting for that edge to kind of snap onto that edge of the 90 degree. Something along those lines there. And then finally, our last one here was to take this shape here and then to reflect it using line L across the axis. So if it'd be like taking the shape and folding it on that line so that we end up with a shape over here like so. And so that would look like, there's my dot would go to here, my next dot would go to here, and my next one would go out to here, right here. And when we play connect the dots, we got this, we have this, and we have this. So that becomes C prime, B prime, A prime to reflect there. So that's one way you might have gone about doing it. But the really nice thing about your series is that you can actually use a, let's turn it on here. That's not my passcode. Sorry here, wrong finger. You can use the tools in GeoGebra to work on this as well, to do the same kind of idea. So for example, in the first one, I wanted you to translate the triangle so that A went to A prime. And to do that, I'll show you how you do that here with my iPad. What you're going to do is you're going to take your vector tool, which is this one right there. We take the vector tool, and I select, in this case, what I'm going to select the A, because I want A to go to A prime. So I select A and then A prime, and it draws a vector for me. The next thing is I want to then move the whole thing over. So to do that, I'm going to click on the translate by vector tool, and this is where it's a little tricky. I'm going to touch the triangle and then the vector tool, and it'll slide the whole thing over. So I touch the triangle and vector, and it slides the whole thing over to look like that. And so I look back at my shape here to kind of check my work. That looks the same as what I drew before on my first figure. Okay, so I press reset, and I go to number 2. And number 2, same thing, remember we're going to slide C to C prime. So I use the vector tool, I select C to C prime to draw the vector. I do translate by vector right there. And then I had trouble with this one, so I got to go triangle, vector, and it didn't work. So I go reset real quick, and I go translate tool, triangle, vector, there it goes. And it slid over right on top of it. It's just like so. So again, it looks like figure 2. Checking my work, did the right thing there. And I go to number 3, I click reset. I go to number 3, 2, 3. And 3 was that rotate of 90 degrees, right? So I'm going to use a rotation tool. So to do that, I click on rotate around point, and I select the point I want to rotate around. Okay. And click on the figure that I want to rotate, which is there. this dialog pops up, and I want to say I want to rotate 90 degrees. And I want to rotate 90 degrees. We said counter, right? Or is this counterclockwise? So it already is selected as counterclockwise, so we're good there. And we're going to say OK. And there it goes. Now what's interesting, I did this one a couple times, and for whatever reason, it just looks a little different than the other one. I'm not sure why that is. I think part of it is it looks like it's in the wrong spot. When I rotated it both times, notice how the distance seems a little different from O to C. Not sure why that is exactly, but on the on the GeoGebra it looks that way, and on this one I did it this way, which is what my answer key looks like in my book too. So not sure exactly, but check with your teacher. And then for number 4, that translate, or sorry, to the reflection line. Let's reset that one. We don't want that there. So go to number 4, 2, 3, 4. We're going to select the reflection thing. We select the point C and then touch the line, and then we reflect. Hey, why didn't you reflect there? Oh, I got to touch the whole thing. So I reflect on the triangle and the line. There you go. Sorry, I just reflected the point. So you did your reflection tool, the triangle, touch the line, and it flips over. So kind of a cool little tool there for GeoGebra on letting you see those translations, reflections, and how that works. Okay, so then when you go to your next section today on the lesson, what you were looking at then is just doing some more translations and rotations with different quadrilaterals. And so what you looked at then was rotating quadrilateral ABCD right here 60 degrees counterclockwise using center B. And so what you were doing was you were taking your shape and you're putting it on the isometric grid right here. So that's our shape, A, B, C, D. And if we're going to rotate it counterclockwise and use the center B, here's B. Counterclockwise means I'm going to move it this direction, right, going that way. So I'm going to move this line right here, for example, to this place right here. So I'm going to rotate that back line to the next point. Finally, I get to a line, and I get to here. So that becomes where I'm going to redraw my shape at, and I redraw the shape looking that direction. In 6, if I'm going to rotate quadrilateral 60 degrees clockwise using center C, then I put this here, and I hold my pencil on the C, and clockwise means I'm going to go this direction, and so I'll take that bottom line here, and I'm going to rotate it up to the next line, which is right here, right? So I'm going to go from this place to this place. I'm only going that far with that bottom line, and when it gets there, I stop. And I know I'm in the right place, and now I got my little crisscross going on, and that's where I am there. When I look at this one, I want to reflect it across line L, and so same type of idea. I take my shape, and then I'm going to bend it or fold it over that reflection line to make that mirror image over here. That's the nice reflection from there to there. And then finally on our last one, figure 8, translate it so the A goes to C. That's just a nice way of saying we're going to take this whole little puzzle, and I'm going to want to put this A point right there where that current C point is at. And so I take it and I simply slide it over, and I redraw the new shape so that I have the two things there. Again, this was just a review of what you did in class there. So hope that helps a little bit there. So the summary of the lesson is we're able to use a grid so that we can describe transformations as things slide from one place to another. So if we took a regular shape here and using this square kind of grid paper, we can notice that things are moved. It says quadrilateral ABCD is translated 4 units to the right and 3 units down. So it's like going like this. I take A and I go over 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I go down 1, 2, 3. So this whole shape is moved over 4 and down 3. It's a way of describing that move. With the isometric grid, I can do the same kind of thing, but now I'm looking at often rotations and angles and all the 60-degree things. So in this case here, we have a quadrilateral KL, so it's here, KLMN. I have this one, my original, and it says it becomes this thing up here, right there, after a 60-degree counterclockwise rotation around that point. And again, that's that same idea of saying we just take this shape here and we draw it like so. We put our pencil here and we're going to counterclockwise 60 degrees. So instead of being on this line, I want that base to go right there on that line. So I'm going to go all the way to there. And it hits that parallel line, and there we go. So that's what I have, 60 degrees. Okay, so that's a little quick review of the lesson. So then, looking at your homework for tonight, we're looking at, again, the grid moves here. We're going to apply the transformations to figure A and then see what we come up with. So figure A is this shape. I'm just going to highlight it here in orange for you so you see it a little bit better. So figure A is right here. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to do the things it's asking us to do. First, it says a translation of P that takes P to P prime. So what that means, I'm going to take my shape. I'm going to just draw it right here. So we have our shape here, 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 and here. And if we're going to translate that from P to P prime, we're going to just basically, in this case, just slide it over to this place right here. So once I get an idea of where that's at, then I can come back and I can draw my dots, my points, where that's going to be. Yep, that's where it's going to be. And then I can draw my new one here. So here is the translation from P to P prime. That would be right there in that spot right there. So that's A. If I look at B, B says a counterclockwise rotation of A using center P of 60 degrees. Okay, so counterclockwise means that I'm going to be rotating this thing 60 degrees. So again, think about this. I want to move this line this way, this much, 60 degrees. That's my new angle. My new angle should be somewhere right around here. This is 60. So my new angle should be this space right here, 60 degrees. That's the line I'm aiming for right there. Okay? So that line now becomes this line is my goal. If I use a tracing paper, I can look and see that I'm right here in the P. There's my initial line. If I rotate it 60 degrees, it's going to stop right there. Right? That's my 60 degree. It only moved one little equilateral triangle space. So I can put my points down to know where that's going to be ending up at. And then I can come back and I can redraw that shape. So it's going to be here, here, and here. So that's the new shape for B, where I've just rotated it 60 degrees there. Okay, so that's where it looks, where it's at. Isn't that cute? And then finally, for C, it says a reflection of A across line L. So I could start back with my initial one here, and if I was to fold this on the line, folding it right there on the line, I end up with something around here, right? My line's folded, mostly folded, and I end up something right around here. Okay, so what you're going to have then is a shape that then reflects right across the line. So make sure when you're doing your reflection, you're actually reflecting across the line L. That's really important. Otherwise you end up in the wrong spot altogether. So in this case, for my reflection, I see I'm going to end up being right below my pink parallelogram. I'm going to be here and here for those 2 points, and then I come down 2 squares and 2 spaces, sorry, and then I connect the dots for my reflected parallelogram here, and that's where the C is going to be. Okay, so now we reflected there. So we made 3 different ones to make that work. Okay, the next one, we have a triangle, and we're going to take the triangle and do a few things with it. So let's take a look at the triangle shape, and it wants you to, on the grid, draw a rotation of triangle ABC. We're going to do a translation of triangle ABC and a reflection of ABC. So it doesn't matter how you can do lots of different things. There's a variety of ways you can answer this one, so it's up to you how you want to approach it. So let's say we do the rotation one first of all. The rotation one is sometimes the trickiest because we're thinking about how am I going to move these things around? What do you mean rotation? So let's say, for example, we wanted to rotate around point A, and we wanted to go clockwise. So A, we wanted to do a clockwise 90-degree rotation. So again, what that means is I'm going to take this line and I want to move this line 90 degrees so that the new line over here forms a 90-degree angle. My goal is to get a 90-degree angle right here in this space. That's what a clockwise rotation 90 degrees will be. So I take that triangle and I'm going to move it all the way around until this line lines up right here. Okay? So to do that, I could take my paper once again and I could draw my triangle here, here, and here with a tracing tool, and I could put my pencil down on A, and I know what I'm aiming for. I'm aiming for stopping this line right there. So as I rotate it around, I wait till I get to there, and now I go, hey, I'm in the right spot. Now I can connect my points to figure out what I need to do. So in this case here, my one point's going to be right there. Sounds great. And my other point, looks a little sloppy, is going to be somewhere down about here. Okay? So I probably should be right there, but I just didn't make it very clean. So I can go ahead and then say, well, that is my rotation of 90 degrees right there. And again, we say it's 90 degrees because from here to here, this space is our 90 degrees. If I wanted to do a translation, okay, so part B, we have a translation. Translation just means I'm going to be moving it, right? Nothing too fancy there. I take my shape, and maybe I just want to translate it down. Let's translate it down. Actually, let's translate it. Yeah, let's translate down 5 steps. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're going to translate it down to right there. Okay. So if I translate down to 5, that means I'm going to slide the whole thing down 5, which means now I have some new points, and they end up being here, and they end up being here. So for translation down, I just moved everything down 5 points, and that's my transition down as it all just went down this way 5. Okay, so I went a translation down 5. That's what I did. And then finally a reflection. You can pick any line you want to reflect across. That's really up to you how you want to reflect things. If I wanted to reflect across, let's say this line right there, let me draw a little line. I'm going to draw it with purple. If I decided I want to reflect across this line and make this my reflecting line, I could do that by then taking my initial shape, right? And then I'm going to fold it over my reflection line, like so. Not a very good fold, sorry about that. Let's see if I can get this right. So I'm going to fold it right over that guy, just like so. And so I fold it by reflect it by folding it over. I end up with new points then being, let's go with this one, new points being here, goes straight across, right? So that's where we are there. And then we also have point B, which ends up being from here across to there. And put our points together. Yep, there we go. And this guy's down here. And that becomes our reflection there and there. So that becomes a reflection of our initial triangle. And that's just one sample. You could do this lots of different ways, but it is important that you know, spend some time with it, figure it out, make sure it is an actual reflection. You can double check by looking at your patty paper and seeing if you're doing that right. For number 3, it says to draw a translated image of A, B, C, D, E so that vertex C moves to C prime. We want this one to move over there. So to do that, we take our tracing paper. We're going to make a copy of the initial, the original. There we are, here, and here, and here, and here, and here. And maybe I put my points there a little darker just so I know where my points are going to be at. And then we're going to slide this whole thing over to here. We're going to drop it down right there. And once it's there, then I can recopy that and retrace what I need to retrace. So I got a point, and a point, and a point, and a point. And maybe I can see those. Nope, not quite. So if I wanted to, I can maybe poke a hole poke a hole, poke a hole, poke a hole, poke a hole, and then put it on the C. And we just go 1, 2, 3, and 4. Oops, I missed that one, huh? That's funny. 1, 2, 4, and get in there. Just doesn't want to go. That's okay. And then I play connect the dots. A, E, D, C prime, and there. Okay, so then I'm labeling it so I know what it is. And there's my translation, just sliding it over. On the next one down below, you want you to take that same shape that we had here, and we're going to reflect it across the line. Alright, so we're going to reflect it across this line. So I'm going to just basically bend it over there and get that right, and then I'll redraw that where it needs to be redrawn. So that's where it gets a little bit tricky, right? Just got to figure out how to do that. So you'll put your dot here, and look where my dot's at, dot, and I got a dot there, got a dot down here, got a dot about here, and a dot about here. And then I can play connect the dots. Now I have something like that. Not perfect, but it gets you the idea. And then finally we're going to rotate a pentagon clockwise around C, clockwise by 150. So we'll take this one here, and we're going to go clockwise, which is this direction, 150 degrees around point C. So clockwise 150 around C. So thinking about just what that means in terms of measurement, this is the tricky part. Here's my C, here's my line. I know I'm going to rotate this direction, right? So I'm going to take this line, and I want that line to end up making a 150 degree angle. So I'm going to take my protractor, I'm going to start here at 0, and I'm going to go all the way around to 150, which is right here, and make a point. And so for me, I'm going to go ahead and just draw a little sketch line right there, because I know that when I rotate this, I want this angle to exist here to here should be 150 degrees. That's what I'm trying to do. I want to move this shape around so that this line right here lands right there, and I have a 150 degree angle. So if I take the tracing paper once again, and I take that shape that I've used already before, let's see, I'm doing it right, there we go. There's my shape. I'm going to go around point C, which is here, and I'm going to rotate it around until I get to 150 degrees, which is going to be right there. So I know I've moved that same baseline where I started at, 150. I can make my new points. 1 point, 2 points. This one doesn't want to go through very well. There we go. 2 points, 3 points, and 4 points. Then I can play connect the dots. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And now at that point I've rotated it around 150 degrees.